I still need someone that can like, hey, Mark, you know what? We're going to take this off video. We're going to go for a walk. Let's just chat about this and get you in the right mindset so the rest of your day is not a wash.
It's hard to pinpoint what it is, but you just know when you see that person that this person has that skill set.
If the person does not have the skills, they can work in silos, and that will really hinder their progress and performance.
I think it's terribly important to insist on individual values.
Learning Culture Podcast.
Initiative, creation, all these things which we value. It's now possible to make organizations on a larger scale than was ever possible before.
Learning Culture Podcast.
Teach people to analyze the kind of things that are said to them.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Learning Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Barry, and this is a show about driving cultures of learning inside companies. Today, we're diving into what happens when two brilliant minds from opposite ends of the talent spectrum find common ground and build something remarkable. My guests are Leah Caseley and Mark Turner, both at LinkedIn. Leah leads global onboarding for talent solutions, helping early career hires hit the ground running. Mark works with emerging leaders, those at the crossroads of performance and potential, guiding them as they step into the people management role for the first time. They got talking one day, and together they built a cross-functional mentorship model that gives new hires structured, real-world support while giving future leaders a safe space to practice leading before they officially take the leap. In our conversation, we talk about what makes someone truly ready to lead, the power of connection and curiosity, and how AI is reshaping both learning and leadership. This one is rich with practical insight and filled with the kind of human moments that remind us why learning is never just about content. It's about people. So let's get into it. Here is my conversation with Leah Caseley and Mark Turner. Leah, Mark, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, so it's exciting. I haven't had a three-person or two guests show in a long time, so I'm excited to do this. And yeah, we got a crew here. We're going to get different perspectives. I'm a huge fan of that. So you guys work together at LinkedIn. You collaborate on things, although you work on separate programs. We're going to unpack all of this. But before we do, I want to start with where it all began for each of you. Maybe Leah, you can start us off. Can you think back to like a specific moment where you realized that being in enablement, talent development was something you wanted to do? And you especially have an interesting evolution from sales to coaching to enablement. So can you tell us about that moment when you realized this was for you?
Yeah, I think the moment I realized is a moment where I wasn't conscious that I was realizing. And I always wanted to be a teacher. My parents were teachers, and I almost went down that path many times. But I do remember the time during my sales career when I realized that enablement was something that I could find interesting. And it was when I was enabled myself. I remember being part of what we used to call summer training. You may remember, Mark, where they would bring everyone to a central hub. I went to Dublin, so I was based in Dubai, and just seeing what we used to call then the sales readiness professionals, our enablement leads on the stage, delivering the content, helping us to grow and transform was the moment I thought, yeah, I could see myself doing that.
Yeah. I share a similar sort of feeling of being drawn to teaching. And I feel like, Mark, when we spoke last, you mentioned that as well. You've always been drawn to teaching.
Yeah, I've always been inspired by, I don't want to say always been inspired by, but like since moving into this part of my career, like, you can tell when someone has the aha moment where that light bulb goes off, where like you feel that where they feel they can go do the work, probably at a better level than you've even taught them to do it. And there's something so amazing about I don't know, what's the catchphrase, teaching someone to fish. Like there's something so empowering about seeing someone take an idea or a lesson you've provided them and then see them like articulate it back to you or demonstrate it back to you in a way in which you're like, oh wow, that was actually even better than I could have done it. I've always found that, when I moved into sales leadership, like it was always so inspiring to see someone run a call with a client in a more creative or inspiring way than I think I might have done. And when you realize that you can transform others to that level, like I don't know, to me that was always more motivational than the personal side of it.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that as well. And so, for a bit more background and context for folks listening, what you guys each work on different sort of aspects or areas of the pipeline of talents as is going through LinkedIn. So, to give some of that context, what, Leah, your focus specifically, what is your kind of remit? What are you responsible for there at LinkedIn?
Yeah, so myself and my team, welcome in the new hires to LinkedIn. So we're delivering the initial training, the onboarding. But at LinkedIn, as Mark has shared earlier, we bring them, we develop them further along that journey. So after onboarding, they go through coaching with our top performers to ensure that they can really deepen and develop that expertise. And we're now looking to extend that program even further to have kind of an always on 12-month program for our new hires where they can upskill, practice, and just really ensure they are driving towards excellence in terms of their performance.
Yeah, so this is something I hear a lot, and I want to unpack a little bit more with you as we get into this conversation. The difference between sort of onboarding and everboarding. I don't know if you use that word. So the ongoing developments and okay. So Mark, can you fill in the gaps then on what area of the talent pipeline are you responsible for?
Yeah, so I get to touch people during like two very episodic moments within their careers, and in many ways, in which they're sort of accelerating their careers based on current trajectories. So I lead one program which is for emerging talent, branded Emerge In as LinkedIn. So this program is for high performers that are in the stage where they're trying to evaluate what is their next move. Is it climbing the ranks from an individual contributor, right? Do I go from a mid-market role to an enterprise role? Do I move into, a larger level of sales? Or do I consider, what a lot of people connect to as the logical thing for high performers, which is a leadership opportunity? So we lead a program which focuses on sort of demystifying what leadership looks like so a high performer can make the right decision for them. And we can sort of discuss how, the right decision is not always leadership. And then I lead a program that catches people that choose the leadership route. And we sort of onboard or ramp the new leaders when they make that decision. So I lead a manager onboarding program for our sales leaders and the leaders within our business organization.
And how long is a program? What does that participant experience look like?
Yeah, so the Emergent Leader program stretches over a year. The formal curriculum takes place over about 10 months. And then the manager onboarding program, there's a curriculum that sort of drives over about a 6-month window.
Okay, interesting. And we touched on this before, but there's an overlap between we did this offline before we started recording between where you guys collaborate on this. Can you share a little bit more about that? Maybe Mark, actually, if you want to kick us off, because you kind of you set that up when we were talking earlier. How do your two responsibilities complement each other?
Yeah, the quick frame on this is, over the years, and I think it was highlighted even more during the pandemic when people sort of left offices, right? And the whole experience of like a new hire being able to like stand up and ask their neighbor a question, or like being able to connect with someone very quickly on a personal level in person, sort of went away. And we sort of, there was a lot of analysis that showed like a new hire's experience in many ways is as good as the buddy experience they have after they go through formal learning. So we started to think like, is there a way to more formalize this so that we can connect a new hire with a phenomenal like post, classroom experience. And we have the emergent leader program, which has a large sum of our top performers that are, one, phenomenal at their roles, and two, aspiring to learn what leadership looks like. And what better way to learn what leadership look like is to run a little team of new hires and feel what it's like to coach those new hires, or run team meetings, or be responsible for someone as they're growing in that pivotal moment. So Leah and I sort of connected as Leah owns the new hire experience, and we started to think about, is there a way to create a win-win experience for both programs? The emergent leaders would love to learn what it's like to lead a team or a cohort, and the new hire team would love to figure out a way to connect new hires with top performers that actually want to spend the time developing them. Right? Sometimes you partner someone with a buddy who has a lot going on their plate. Maybe they don't want to be a leader. They're doing this as a favor to a manager. Like, is there a way for us to enhance and improve that experience? So, Leah's team has been just uh, an amazing partner as they've been able to sort of um, operationalize this partnership and provide the new hires with direct connection to the emergent leaders. And we've been doing that now for, I'm looking at you, Leah, 4 months, I think.
Okay, nice. So you kind of still,
Yeah.
yeah. And what benefits are you seeing for your audience, Leah?
Yeah, I mean, before I dig into that, I would add that for um, the benefit for the buddy, the emerging leader, is that we're providing them with a structure, and we're providing them with materials to help them to deliver that support, versus typically a buddy is just kind of
Figuring it
shadow
out.
me, show them what you know, and that's good enough. So I think, well, that's the benefit for the emerging leaders, that they're supported. And of course, for our new hires, not only are they getting that mentorship, but it's very, very targeted. So we literally give these emerging leaders a pack that includes what we call at LinkedIn meetings in a box. So a guide to help them to deliver that team meeting, which will align to some of our operating priorities or some of the skills that we know will help those new hires get to the next level. So far, so good. We're hearing a lot of positive sentiment around it. And it's, as well as having that buddy like support, this is a longer period. So buddy typically, I think, will spend a couple of weeks, maybe a month with a new hire. Because this is more structured, we're giving them 6 months of mentorship.
And how does this differ from their like normal reporting structures and managers? How do you differentiate those?
Um, so we have very clear guidelines that we provide to these mentor coaches, emerging leaders, that they need to be communicating regularly with the frontline managers. And the idea is that they can support the coaching, the mentoring efforts of that frontline manager. They can surface any gaps that they're seeing from the new hire pod that they're working with, any best practices, any strengths, and funnel that to the manager to help them to further develop that rep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's incredibly helpful. I wonder if there's any like stories or anecdotes that have popped up in the last 4 months that you can share, where like just something super specific that someone that you just didn't expect to have happen from this.
I can share a couple real quick, and Leah, if you want to share maybe any on the new hire standpoint. So we've had we've had two managers that were promoted and moved into the manager ranks, and like I would say in like the last 6 months, and both of them reached out to partners in Leah's world. Leah, I'm sure you've been privy to this from Chris Hanlon, but like both managers highlighted that in many ways they were on the fence on whether or not leadership was right for them. And the experience of having the group of four new hires and the satisfaction they got as from seeing them progress over their own personal satisfaction was something that they assumed they would have enjoyed, but they found to be more enjoyable than they thought. And it I think I think the words they both used was around like it inspired them to pursue leadership more than they thought they wanted to.
That's awesome.
And both leaders have done really well. More directly, we have one new manager who starts in July who has cited the fact that the experience for being the onboarding buddy in this setting um, very much reinforced her thoughts as well. She'll move into leadership in July, but um, from an emergent leader lens, the only challenge that comes with it is the maintaining the focus on the role while doing this as a stretch. So, I mean, in our current ecosystem, any sort of stretch can be a challenge, but I think the people that have the space to stretch are really finding benefit from it. I have yet to hear anything on the contrary.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm going to come back to this point about this, like getting a taste for leadership and then getting inspired to do it. For others, it may sort of turn you off. So I'm going to come back to that. But Leah, any like unique benefits you've seen for new hires that are getting, more like contextual exposure to, or more opportunities, even just growing their network very early on?
Yeah. What we are hearing is from frontline managers who are sharing that new hires are ramping quicker. They are showing up with the basics that would have typically taken longer to embed and establish. And we've also seen some positive results. So the time to what we call key customer moment has decreased. Um, we're seeing that more of our new hires are selling larger deals and for longer contracts. So it's very, very early days, but we're already seeing positive results. So that's a win.
And do you think that's a function of exposure? Like they're just getting exposed to this more often. They're part of those conversations, more like early on in their careers.
I think it's a combination. I would say yes, exposure. I think it's giving them the opportunity to reinforce what they learn in onboarding. A buddy may help a little bit with that, but as I said, this is very structured. So they really get to apply and go deep on some of the basics that they go through in the onboarding program, and it's a significant amount of time, so you're really getting that support, guidance, mentorship um, throughout those 6 months, where some of those new hires could easily drop off unless they're getting the support they need.
And Andrew, I want to add one point from an emergent lens. What often lacks within the emergent program is that at a high level we cover what leadership looks like across, I don't even know, probably 100 roles in emergent. So it is broad brush. Um, the benefit of what Leah's team provides is twofold. Like, one, they get the experience of what it's like to be in a leadership role, and number two, they get like transparent visibility into the key drivers of being a manager in that space. So like the curriculum and the focal areas in these meetings in a box that Leah's team provides are the key moving factors for a new hire to be successful in the talent business. So if you even fast forward it for an emergent leader, like one day they get into an interview for a leadership role, they can say, hey, look, I have a real clear understanding of the things that are moving the needle for the talent business. I've been empowered to teach new hires that, and here's how I feel like I'd be equipped to do that for a team full time. So it's like it drills it down so much more tactically for the emergent leader. Um, because not only do they have the high level understanding of like skills and thoughts to be a leader, but now they have and this is how I would do it in talent. It creates such a more specific experience for them.
And a tangible example, right? How many are asked to interview? Okay, great. All of these ideas are wonderful, but tell me about when you led a team. And they have that now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. And to be clear, that when you say talent, that's your talent solution at LinkedIn. So you both are concentrated on that vertical.
So, yeah, Leah, you want me to take a swing at this for 3 seconds? So the revenue drivers within LinkedIn is we have a team that focuses on talent acquisition and businesses that would leverage LinkedIn's data to recruit and hire talent. We have a marketing solutions business, right? So marketers that will leverage LinkedIn as a platform to market their businesses, and then we have a sales solutions side of the business where sellers will leverage LinkedIn as a platform to sell into clients. So the talent is the largest revenue driver for
Yeah.
the business. So
And
that's what
okay,
Leah
it's a lot. And okay, and is this model that you guys have sort of pioneered in for the talent? Is it being used in the others, or is this the first time it's been
That's phase
That's
trialed?
two.
that's the plan,
That's
Andrew.
the
Okay,
plan.
okay, okay. So we're getting it fresh here. We're getting it right off the 4 months in. I love it. Okay. All right, so let's turn. I'm going to come back to LinkedIn and the specific context there because I think there's some interesting changes that you've both observed, and we'll talk about how that's impacting things. But let's zero in on this point about emerging leaders and the sort of willingness or desire to lead. Right, Mark, when you mentioned on our first call that 40% of top performers regret moving into a leadership role in their first 12 months. And I've tried to look up the quotes. I couldn't, I mean, the exact stat, I couldn't find the exact one, but there are a number that sort of point to that. So it may have been like an amalgamation of various things. I think anybody listening to this will agree with that sentiment though, right? Like we promote people into, it's like a natural default thing, right? To promote people into that people leadership role. A big chunk of them don't actually enjoy that. Can you add some color to that? What is it that people don't enjoy about leading others that takes them away also from what they were good at doing?
Yeah. I mean, I remember you and I flipped a bunch of articles back and forth that I think all in different ways highlighted that statistic. I think we had a little love fest of that. But I remember I know there was some Gardner research and there was a couple of things that came out of the ATD conference. But I think the bigger highlight to me is the fact that being a leader is just transformationally different than what it was 5 years ago, right? Even a sales leader nowadays, I think, is significantly different. The being able to manage a human being as a whole is so much more critical in a leadership role, even in a sales world, than it was prior, right? Like moving into sales leadership back in the day was, could I manage a pipeline? Could I light a fire? Could I share best practices? Could I give thoughtful approaches for people to make their own and interact with clients? Could I hire the people that could nail the narratives the best way and engage, like it was that. And, businesses have changed so much where, the most important trait to being a good leader nowadays is much more connected to just being a good human. Like business acumen is like an entry point in many ways to like be considered for a role, but to be a good leader, you have to be able to meet people where they're at, connect with them when they're struggling through personal challenges. Like I feel like you don't really always want to hear this, but like I feel like the role of therapist comes into play. Like being able to do what's right for someone ultimately will motivate them to fly through a wall for you more. Um, I feel like at a company like LinkedIn, it's not really hard for us to find ridiculous sales talent to come into our business. What is challenging is having a leader that is able to inspire and motivate that talent to constantly flow with the continual world of change. Like when I think about I think AI in the future will like transform I think it'll make it easier for leaders to be more strategic. Maybe it'll make it easier for them to craft communication and messages. What I don't think it will ever replace is the ability to create inspirational moments and create like followership, and that's like a human connection. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe one day we'll get to some Star Wars thing, and there will be bots that will inspire you more than Leah might. But I think that human connection wins the day, and I think so. To answer your question, if you were really great in sales, like that doesn't necessarily equate to being really good in creating followership, or leadership, or human connection. Um, I think to be a great seller, you have to have like a good amount of selfishness in you to drive you forward, even when the deal goes dry. And like that doesn't necessarily produce a great leader. And I think it less so does nowadays. So I think a lot of people have moved into leadership figuring those skills would connect. And then they find themselves playing therapist or hearing someone who just went through a really hard moment and having to connect. And like when you were a great seller, you might be like, Andrew, I'm so sorry to hear that's going, but like, look, there's a 20% gap. Let's talk about that. When that might not
Right.
be the right moment. And I
Right.
think people
Right.
struggle
Right.
with that.
Yeah. Yeah, Leah, is there anything you want to? I have a follow-up question for you, but is there anything you want to add to what Mark said?
No, just plus one. I feel like if you look at the skills and expertise required to be a leader versus those to be an individual contributor, they're actually poles apart. They couldn't be more far removed. So, yeah,
Yeah.
just agree.
That was actually, so my question is around, if you look at the new hire population that comes through your programs, are there any things that you've been able to tell with, and then with the benefit of experience, you see those people become successful leaders? Like, what characteristics separate someone from being a potential leader and just a really strong individual contributor?
I would say the great connectors. You can spot those quite quickly. Great communicators, yes, but that kind of really applies to all sales leaders, sales professionals. I think in today's environment, to build on what Mark said, we'll be looking for individuals that really show up with empathy, compassion, active listening, which again is relevant in the sales profession, but someone who stands out with those traits, I think, would be well placed to move into leadership. And collaboration as well. So that's something I think isn't always necessary as a sales rep, but um, obviously so necessary as a leader.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you assess for any of this, formally at all?
No, no, we should.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's hard, right? It's probably
Yeah.
quite hard because it's quite like nebulous as well. But yeah, that is interesting. Um, can you just? I want to double click on the connector piece. Like, how does that show up? How do you know someone's a good connector?
Yeah. I think, as you said, it is quite nuanced. So what I always tell my team is we need to think not just about what people are doing and how they're doing it, but how they make others feel. Because that is something that is so key to being a great sales professional. So I think observing how individuals make others feel, it's difficult to identify, but I think in the messy knowing that is being a human, we do know who those individuals are. Um, and I think that's, within a new hire environment, it's quite limited. But then as they progress through their careers, I think it's those that are showing up to lead a project, to be a buddy, to be a mentor. Those kind of things would
Yeah,
be what we'd be looking
yeah, yeah. It's like one of those things that there was there was this famous like court case, I think, where they were trying to like litigate or create laws and regulations around pornography, and the person was asked like, how do you define pornography? And they were like, I can't really define it, but I know it when I see it, right? And that's kind of like this, right? I mean, it's the same sort of thing. Like, it's hard to pinpoint what it is, but you just know when you see that person that this person has that skill set. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
the
can see that
soft
through you
skills.
guys. Yeah, with the pornography example there. I might not use that one again. It's actually really funny in context, but I will move right along. So let's talk about those people, Mark, that you work with that are on the track to promotion. Other than giving them these opportunities to work with these pods of new hires to experience what it's like to lead others, how else are you helping them think through whether they actually want to be a leader or not?
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like we take it in two different approaches. Like from a program design, we've worked with our talent acquisition and HR partners to identify what are the key skills that we hire for leaders, right? So like from a company standpoint, when we interview external candidates for leadership roles, what are the things we're looking for, right? We're looking for leaders that demonstrate coaching and coachability. We're looking for people that demonstrate compassion. We're looking for people that have an ability to operate within a culture while also delivering accountability structures. So like there's very specific things that we look for, and then we design the program backwards to provide like lessons that cover that content. With an internal candidate, we can give them a little bit more of a peek behind the curtain and give like some more details to it. But that's sort of how the program's designed. Um, from a talk track standpoint, in many ways, I try to sell them against it. I know that sounds kind of counterintuitive, but like I feel like you should. I feel like when you're a high performing individual contributor, you should be trying to convince yourself not to become a leader. And if you find yourself if you find it challenging to do that or yourself unable to do that, that is validation that it is the right motion for you. Because, um, if you make an intelligent bet for something on an individual level and it goes wrong, it's easy to pivot, right? Like, whatever that change analogy is, right? Like, if you're riding your bike and you realize, oh shit, I want to go right, it's not that hard to turn your bike right. Now, if I'm driving a bus and I realize that, oh, I wanted to go right, I got to pump the brakes a little sooner. There's a bunch of people that might be thrown around in the bus if I make a right turn too. Like it is a lot harder to pivot when others are being considered. So, the surer you can be before making that motion, the better. Um, so, we talk a lot about like, try to talk yourself out of it. And if you genuinely can't, then you should feel more secure. The other thing is, in companies like ours that are so matrixed, there are many opportunities for you to be a leader without a title. And I feel like that's a common thing across larger companies. But there are several people in our organization, especially in the larger, higher level of sales, that in many ways like indirectly manage larger teams than managers do. Like when I look at an account executive that like oversees an account like a Salesforce or an Amazon, like when you look at the cross-functional partners and the relationship managers that they sort of have dotted line to them because they're the quarterback of an account, it's larger than most teams. So like you don't need a manager title to be a leader. So figuring out the type of leader you want to be will allow you to potentially avoid making a regrettable decision to move into something that you may regret. So those are kind of the tones and the scopes I try to
Yeah.
embody.
I I really like this last point about what I'm hearing is sort of influencing without authority, right? Like the classic old skill set there. And I'm curious, Leah, if you focus on that skill set in the new hire sort of population, if you thinking through like the skills that you need to equip people with to be able to do that, because it's going to benefit them as individual contributors first and foremost, right? Which is what you're concerned with. So like how are you maybe approaching that topic?
Yeah, it's a huge focus for our sales reps to win deals. Given the complexity of the macro these days, the extended buyer circles, the scrutiny on spend, they have to, let's say, influence without authority within organizations. So that ability to really network and go into, let's say, a large account like Salesforce and manage that customer team. So we are embedding those skills in that way for them to excel in their sales careers. Um, Beyond that, that is something that I think managers are coaching to. So as they are navigating through their careers at LinkedIn, um, as Mark said, it is such a matrixed organization. It is something that everyone needs to be able to do if they want to succeed.
Yeah. So we talk to a lot of people in matrix organizations, I feel like, and again, within the spirit of sort of pattern matching, what are some of the challenges you see people with that that okay, this is a symptom that we can solve with the stuff that we've just been talking about, like influencing without authority. What are some of the challenges people have applying that skill set, influencing cross functionally, working with stakeholders, that kind of thing?
Yeah, you want to
No,
go, Mark?
go ahead, Leah.
Um, so we work cross-functionally. So within our world, we do see this a lot. In order to move that bus that Mark described along, you do need to be friends with everyone who's sitting in the back, and sometimes it's change the drivers, and sometimes change the wheels, and that does require to not work in silos. So something thinking about that sales rep, it can be a skill that they need to develop and to really build relationships across, not just upwards, but horizontally. I would say that's a huge part of the roles that we have as cross-functional partners. And even as I was a sales rep at LinkedIn, if you want to get a deal pushed through, then you're building relationships with deal desk that's in a different country and different teams. So I think a long way around of answering the question. I think that if the person does not have the skills, they can work in silos, and that will really hinder their progress and performance.
That's a good one. Yeah, silos. I've definitely heard here often, and that's like a really good sign that something's wrong here. And it what you just described also comes back to the connector sort of archetype that you talked about before, right? That seems to be one of the core skills here. Yeah, Mark, anything to add?
I think I feel like I wish there was a perfect way to do it, right? So like if I double down on my thought of like how do you like prove people out of potential opportunities, like when I look at when I look at an organization that Lee and I support, there's about 10,000 people in it. I feel like over the last couple of years, we see 200 or 300 leaders come into the program and come into the business, and maybe about 100 of them are net new or investments in the business. A couple hundred of them are backfills or replacements. So like if you just do the quick math on that, right? Like we hire a lot of high performers at LinkedIn. The people that would be considered for leadership roles are the highest of that typically, right? Like you need some sort of high level of results to be considered. That's kind of a table stakes entry point. So within our program, like we accept somewhere between 150 and 200 people on an annual basis, which is a sliver of the population. So like we've set up guardrails in which to even enter this program, which is not an entrance point to leadership. Like you can become a leader without being in the program, but like you need to already have proven more than just the results. Like the results gets you considered to be in the program, but you need a letter of recommendation from your director. So you have to prove that you've already know how to manage up and you know how to socialize your brand. And in order to get a letter of recommendation from a director for a program like this, you probably have to have some cross-functional partners that support that because you know what I mean? Like, why would you greenlight someone for a potential leadership role if you didn't feel like they had that support? So, um, I mean, it's a little bit more indirect, but then no matter how many guardrails or processes you set up, you still find people that eventually progress into a role, and here they are 2 years later, and
Yeah,
they're wondering if they made the right decision.
yeah, yeah. I can't help but think how important the sales skill set, right? Trying to influence a buyer and move them through the buying process is internally as well to sort of,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
build your career basically, right?
I would say it's the same.
yeah.
Like I would
Yeah,
almost I, I would say it's almost the same. You may not be getting a signature on a contract of revenue, but like one of my favorite speakers, Carla Harris. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she always speaks about how there's different types of currencies that you obtain in your career, and one of them is like the a professional currency, like which is more like what do people say about you when you're not in that room, and like that is the sales job, right? Like I need to be able to find my champions at these different levels that, 3 months down the road, this leader left and they're looking for the right person to fill that role. And Andrew and Leah, both who aren't my manager but have worked with me, will say, you know what, I think Mark's a candidate. And here's a couple examples of how I've worked with him that have made me think he might be a good candidate. Like those decisions are so highly influenced in rooms you are not sitting in, which is no different than the sales process, right? Like the decision maker is making the decision based on what you've provided those champions and those influencers in the sales process. I mean, it's very similar.
And I think in the same way that in today's selling environment, the buyer circle has increased dramatically. It's no longer just that one guy is going to sign the contract. It's the same when it comes to hiring individuals. Today, you will see a lot more folks sitting on that panel. So you need to multi-thread and build those relationships.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's an intentionality to all of this, right? That feels like the key thing, because you can put in a lot of great work, but
Sure.
if people aren't, if that work's not visible, right, you're kind of doing yourself
Right.
no favors. Yeah. Okay, so a podcast in 2025 would not be a podcast if we didn't talk about AI. So I need to bring that into the conversation a little bit. But I'm genuinely curious. First of all, what does your AI adoption look like? Where are you at as a company?
I would say we are understanding the potential that we have as an organization. We're experimenting with a lot of different tools. Have we embedded those formally into our processes? Not quite, but we're definitely on the way to getting there and discussing that.
Yeah, that feels consistent with a lot of companies I talk to.
Quite
Yeah,
a vague
Mark,
answer.
I mean, it's all like, yeah, I mean, the bigger the company, the harder it is to do this kind of massive change initiative, right? So I like that you mentioned experimentation there. Like, do you have any specific examples? Maybe Mark, you can add a few here, where it feels like a common refrain is that, right? Experiment, try like small little things that you can incorporate AI in to make your work more effective, more efficient. Anything you can share on that? That's like,
I mean, it's very like experiential for me right now, where it's like I'm trying to use it within the learning process and the learning moments as like thought starters. So like when we'll deliver some content and some learning on a topic, and then we'll say, let's set up a specific breakout where you can go deeper. Here are a couple prompts that might provide you with some examples that you can discuss, right? Like, or we'll say like, here's an example that we would discuss. Here's 2 or 3 prompts that I think will give you good starting points to evaluate your conversation deeper. So like, you send someone to a breakout and say, hey, create a list of things that blah, blah, blah. Now that might be like, here's a prompt that will give you a list of things that hit a manager in this setting. Review that list. How many of those feel real to you? Discuss like, so I feel like the framing of the experiential part of the learning is where I'm spending a lot of my time outside of like asking it to rewrite emails and make sure I don't spell check stuff wrong. Um, I think from a company standpoint, like this is such a very like fascinating question because literally yesterday we had a session with, and the head of our LSS Namer business joined, and she was coming back from our leadership summit last week, and she talked about how our CEO referenced multiple times like how do we as a big company figure out a way to adopt and experiment quickly. Like, and Andrew, you sort of highlighted that. I think it's really challenging in a business our size, and I think there's a lot of fear of like how do we not become Blockbuster, right? Like,
yeah,
I
yeah,
I don't know if that analogy makes sense for many people. There's one of them left in Bend, Oregon. For those listening that don't know what a Blockbuster is, people used to rent videos, but like, um, I think that that's a real fear, right? Because um, there's a lot of guardrails in companies our size that block the ability to integrate a quick technology. And what's the risk of not maybe removing
of
those
not doing
blockers,
it.
but that's above my pay.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, what you're getting there's a trade-off. There's also the risk of sharing,
Big time.
confidential information, like all that kind of stuff. Also, the hallucination. Like, can you trust people to, like what you said. I love the way you said that. Where you said you throw it out. You're basically getting ChatGPT or whatever it is you're using to generate ideas, but then you said what feels right, right? That's an important part. And actually, I want to use this to segue into the sort of human skills of it, because what you just described there to me is like taste. You've been doing this work for a long time. You know what good looks like, what it doesn't look like. So you know what feels right. And ChatGPT can throw out 12 different examples to you. You're gonna pick 3 of those that resonate, and maybe you're gonna tweak them, maybe combine some. You want to say more about that?
So a little bit, right? So like if I gave all 3 of us a script on how to deliver a motivational, like rah-rah thing to a team in an hour, like one of us will deliver it in a more connected way to that group. Like, right? So that's a style. So like, look, maybe one day we eliminate the human, which I certainly don't, I'm not looking forward to. And frankly, I don't think happens, but it's one thing to have the script. Like I could get the teleprompter for the speech Tom Cruise delivers in Mission Impossible, but guess what? He's probably going to deliver it a little better than I am. Right? Like, so yeah, AI, I guess, gets you to that level. But like, look, I mean, as someone who's going through whatever I'm going through personally, professionally, whatever my last client call was, like, I still need someone that can like, hey, Mark, you know what? We're going to take this off video. We're going to go for a walk. Let's just chat about this and get you in the right mindset so the rest of your day is not a wash. Like AI, it's certainly not there yet. Like it's certainly not
Yeah.
telling me let's go
Yeah.
for a walk.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, Leah, I'm wondering if this has impacted at all the skills that you're looking to prioritize in your onboarding programs. Like, are you leaning more into sort of human skills? Like, how has that changed maybe the way you approach things?
I would say a bit of both. So AI is a priority. So we are looking at how we can interweave that into the different stages of the sales cycle. So similar to what Mark described, if it's at the discovery stage, here are some prompts that perhaps you can use to get some really high impact questions. If you're creating your executive summary, perhaps you can use Copilot to refine it, that kind of thing. So it is a very big focus for us. Our own platform is powered by AI. So LinkedIn is AI powered. So a big focus is ensuring not just that our new hires, our reps, are using AI, but are they talking about it, especially when it comes to our own platform and solution, with confidence and with conviction. So that is a very big focus for us. Um, and then to the other point, yes, also ensuring that those soft skills are front and center. And I think that is going to become more and more of a focus in coming years, as we are using AI more. And to Mark's point, will it ever remove that need for human connection? I believe that we're going to be craving human connection the longer we are digging into AI and supported by it, but there's a trade-off.
Yeah. Okay. And so I want to dig into 2 different skills, and then we'll kind of move on to a wrap up question after this. And Mark, I'm going to address one to you, Leah, one to you. So to me, these are like really core human skills. Mark, the one that I think you and I talked about is curiosity and the ability to ask good questions, right? Like that's such a key thing in interfacing with AI, right? It's your ability to ask a good question determines the quality of the output that you get, right? So um, we talked a little bit about how we were almost throughout school, we've been conditioned out of curiosity. We're told to have the right answer and to memorize that so we can present it when we ask for it, right? But is there anything you doing or anything you're passionate about that's helping to develop that curiosity, is teaching people to ask better questions?
Yeah, it's interesting. So so I'm a certified coach on the side, and I do a lot of coaching. So I'm all into the curiosity, and I'm all into the good questions. And I think about this specific thing on 2 lenses. As a parent of an 11 and an 8-year-old, Like the amount of time that I have to explain to them or talk to them about how, like, I'm thrilled you got the right answer. I'm way more curious how you thought about the process to get the answer. Like, and then frankly, like when we do math, we talk about like, well, that's great that you got the answer. What are two different ways that you could have gotten to that answer? Because I think I don't want to say the most important leadership skill, but it's certainly in the list somewhere is problem solving. Like one of the brilliant things about working at a company like LinkedIn is we get to interact with clients where we don't actually have the right answer to their like we have products that we believe can fuel the right answer for them, and like we're lucky to have like some ridiculously amazing products that solve a heck of a lot of problems. um but like, when I sit down with a client or a high performer that like is trying to figure out whether or not they want to move into leadership, like that is a very unique question or challenge for them. And it's different than what it might be for you or for Leah. So, going down that path of like, well, how might you, what could you, like, how do we explore things with a focus on the process, not the result? Because even if we got a good result today, the new problem tomorrow may not, the result that we got may not be. Like, you have to be in that problem solving thought process. Our VP has recently spoken a lot about like, I want to hire people that are problem hunters. I want people that want to find problems to solve. um, if you're just hiring people that want to find an answer, then there's the what's next, what next. The last joke I make is like, I make this joke frequently during my manager onboarding, but our mission at LinkedIn is to create economic opportunity for the global workforce. And I always say, like, our CEO is there's never going to be a moment where he's going to stand up at an all hands and be like, hey guys, we did it. Economic opportunity, global workforce, check. Like, we're not really sure what LinkedIn is necessary for anymore. So we're going to
Exactly.
like, there is never going to be a problem within our
Yeah.
space that is solved.
Right.
Right. So if you're not curious, if you're not thoughtful about it, like if that's not your mindset, you're going to have a real hard time living in this world of constant change and
And
you know
complex,
yeah,
open-ended problems, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
there aren't
That's
answers. There is no, like, there's not right or wrong.
yeah. Yeah. That and where there is, it's generally in the most simple, basic type of problems where it's like a known, there's a known like you're following a routine or an
Yeah,
SOP
did
or
I
something.
create an
Yeah.
opportunity and dynamics correctly? Like, yes.
Good example. Exactly. Yeah. So that was awesome. I would love to go deeper on that. But moving along, so this is, and now we're going to change direction completely. Leah, you mentioned to me you use breathwork and wellness practices in some of your programs, and we do a little bit of that as well. So I'm curious. Like, I think this is a very, I think we've just scraped the surface as an industry with using this kind of stuff. I feel like you could say a lot more to that. Can you expand on what you've been doing and where you think that could go, as in this context of also like working with AI and all that?
Yeah. So what have I been doing for a while now? So as I developed this passion for transforming others, helping others, I became a coach and I became a yoga teacher. And both of those professions, depending on what kind of coaching you do, can touch on the importance of regulating your nervous system. And one of the easiest ways to regulate your nervous system is through breath work. Even if you just take a deep breath now, you'll feel how your body relaxes. So I've been using it in training sessions for a while, and it just helps to connect individuals to each other, even virtually. It's amazing how you see the impact, bring focus. And I'm very passionate about bringing this into sales training because I feel 80% of communication is subconscious, right? We're told. And how many sales reps have messed up a meeting because of their nerves, because of their stress levels, because of the desperation that's swirling around in their mind? So if they could just take some time to learn first how to regulate their nervous system, I truly believe that could lead to literally more dollars on the table. And I think in today's environment, and as we become more AI dependent, it's going to become even more necessary. So our nervous system is the same one we had 600 million years ago, and it has not caught up to the way that we are living our lives today. So yeah, something I'm very passionate about.
Yeah, and also, so I could tell something you could speak a lot more on. Yeah, I mean, I think both of the examples you shared are about these moments that matter, and those moments are human to human, right? Like, you can use AI all you want to prepare for a meeting, to develop an insight, to get ideas and all that, but ultimately you have to deliver that message or make a case to another human being, and yeah, doing that in a regulated state is going to help you. Doing that in a curious state is going to help you. And yeah, I'm sure we could come up with a few other good examples of human skills that will be more important. All right, so thanks for sharing those two. So as a final question, this is the magic wand question. So if you had a magic wand and you could make any constraint go away, budget, something as simple as budget, to like being able to connect everyone together in person through virtual reality or otherwise, whatever, like if you could make anything, if you could change anything about how companies develop leaders, what would you change?
It's a really fascinating one. My high level answer, I think, would be uh, create a space where they can holistically do the job before they get the job, almost as like a trial, right? So like, or not a trial, but like I guess a trial, right? Like if I'm a high performer and I'm like, you know what, I think I'm the right person for this leadership role, and I go for that leadership role, I feel like there should be like an entry year in which I get to lead a lower risk team fully. And in order to move into a full time leadership role, I have to prove that I have successfully done X to move into it. Um, like, my like really high level, like wonderful vision would be like one day, could we have the budget? Like, if you think about the example of what Leah and I are doing right now, could we fast forward years down the road where an emerging leader can apply for like a manager in training role, and for the next year of their life, they get a full team of new hires and they lead that team for a full year and they have their quotas on their back, and they have to achieve as a team a certain total, like literally they run the team, and then after that year they're evaluated. Obviously the new hires are evaluated to moving up into whatever role, but the manager is the potential manager is evaluated. um, I think we make a lot of bets that could be less risky if people were given an opportunity to do that. I mean, it's really hard, right? Like, you don't want to take a high performer off a client. Like, I understand that,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I think that would
It's
be
this like just kind of reminds me of professional sports teams and this difference you have
a
between
minor
people
league.
in
Sure.
yeah. Well, also just like the difference between, we don't ask a professional sports person to perform all the time. In fact, their practice to perform ratio is really high, right? They're practicing 80% of the time. They're performing 20. It's you're performing 99% of the time at work, and you get to practice like 1%. So yeah, I think that's a great one. I like that. All right, Leah, what's yours?
I think building on that space piece, which is this isn't that revolutionary, but giving managers the time and space to actually coach and transform individuals. We see that our sales leaders are just stretched so thin as they're having to take care of so many operational, administrative tasks, attend client meetings, versus if that could in some way, maybe AI is going to help us there, take those things off their plate. Imagine the quality of the talent that they could then produce through much more time to real dedicated coaching and mentorship.
Yeah, I love it. And I think this is a great way to end off the conversation, because both of those two examples are kind of, you feel like I feel like you've started the process with that pilot that you're 4 months into now, right? Like you're experimenting and trialing something that could lead to those two visions of the future there, which is pretty exciting. So, yeah. Thank you both for coming on the show and sharing your insights and experience with me and the listeners.
Hello. I hope you enjoyed that episode. It's Andrew again with a quick message. If you'd like to support the show, the best way to do that is to leave us ratings and reviews where you listened. If you're on YouTube, hit the like and subscribe buttons, and feel free to leave a comment. We love hearing from our listeners and viewers. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, please take the time to give us a rating and leave a review. Once again, we love hearing from our loyal listeners. If you're listening to this on Spotify, please hit the follow button to make sure that you don't miss new episodes as they come out. See you next week for another episode of the Learning Culture Podcast. Thank you for listening.